Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome back to another episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for coming back for another episode. It's amazing. And there you go, Hannah. I kicked it off by telling everybody we have an amazing podcast. And for those of you that have listened and come around for the last, 35 episodes, you'll hear amazing at least once throughout every fucking episode, because that's the way we roll. And yes, this is explicit as fuck episode, because this is the first episode that we are going to record after the Orlando shootings. And I don't want to decrease the value of the whole episode, but I get a little ranty later. I will tell everybody that if you hadn't figured it out. For those of you listening,
age down.
Yeah, Hannah has to do it every time he comes to my house. He shuts them off just because he doesn't want to hear me, and then he just kind of goes, yeah, and let me rebut that without actually listening to what you're going to say. It's kind of like when we had the discussion about Trump and Hillary and how Hannah really is going to vote for Trump because Bernie's not in. So Hannah just can't help himself. He's a Trump fan now, and I don't know what to say about that.
But whenever Chris starts pulling the Trump angle out, my hearing aids stop working, and I throw the batteries across the yard.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you vote for Trump. You're going to lose all your health care, and we're going to build a wall around you. So, but anyway, this is going to be a special episode. We have a friend of ours, a friend that I've known for, I think about 3 years now. I've been to his house. I've, hung out with him. He's been part of our community here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I invited him on my podcast, 2 years ago, I think. I think we were drinking one afternoon playing board games, and it's like, yeah, come on my podcast. It's like, okay, well, I got to get the Google Hangouts thing. Well, 2 years later, Tim has joined the Google Hangouts realm, and he's joining our show tonight for the first time. So please welcome with a warm round of applause. Come on, Hannah, give a warm round of applause, because I don't know how to hit the applause button here.
Okay, and I'll clap into the microphone, I guess.
There you go. And welcome our dear friend Tim to the show, Cellar Door Skeptics. How are you, Tim?
I'm great. It took me a while to figure out Google Hangouts since I'm that fucking old. So well, I got to figure it out. My daughter showed me, so I'm good now.
Your daughter showed you. Well, it could be because of all the alcohol. Maybe the too many beers, and then you just kind of get bored. You're like, fuck this. I'd rather just go to sleep.
Yeah. And I blew you off like a couple of weeks ago. Well, I didn't blow you off. I had an obligation or something came up, but I forget what. But I'm here finally.
Yeah. So.
Well, he's got it on a list. It's on the list, and after the third or fourth drink of the night, you're like, I'm going to put it out till tomorrow, and it just keeps happening over and over again.
you should, yeah, if you ever come over, you'll notice that, because by the time we finish the episode, you can actually usually hear Hannah slurring to the point where he's like, his head's hitting the microphone, and so I have to go through and edit out all the little bump, because that's his head. That's just his head hitting it. And some of it's because he enjoys Trump so much now. So and we could get into the Bernie thing in a second, because I know, Tim, you're a big Bernie fan. And I, by the way, I still have the pen you gave me from when you volunteered at Pride Fest last year.
Yeah, I am, but I mean, I saw the writing on the wall about 6 months ago on where it was going. So it was just one of those. Still love Bernie. I wish it was him, but it's not, so okay, I move on. I'm not a bot.
Hannah's kind of a little bit of a bot, so. But if you go back and listen to the last episode, Hannah and I get into it a little bit over his sexism and Hillary there.
Yeah, that automatically turned into the Trump fantasy that I've been having. I want to run my hands through his hair.
Anyway. So what we want to do to start off the episode, so for everybody listening, we have a segment called
Let's start the proceedings.
Crazy Shit Chris Used to Believe.
Brought to you by Cellar Door Skeptics.
But tonight we get to have a special guest join us, because Tim also grew up religious and also had some of the same crazy shit he used to believe. So, Tim, just to give you a little bit of an intro, when we've done this before, usually Hannah just kind of sits there and goes, what the fuck was wrong with your upbringing? What the hell? Did you really believe that shit? Like, hold on. So, for instance, I think the first one we did was when I told them about how I actually genuinely believed that men had one less rib than women, and I'm dead serious, till I was about 20.
The canopy one was the one that freaked me out the most.
Oh, well, that's right underneath the firmament. This is the canopy.
Yeah.
That's how that
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we didn't get to the point where we said God was peeing on us. I mean, we could have just said that. Yeah, God had to just take a big ass piss and fill the whole world up with it.
He was crying. That's what flooded the world. He was so sad about what was going on. His tears flooded the world. So it was, really a mercy in a just way.
So tonight we thought we'd do the Rapture. And for those of you who don't know what the Rapture is, take 30 seconds, pause your podcast, go to Google, and Google the Rapture. Because if you don't Google the Rapture, what we're about to say will make absolutely no sense. You're going to be like, nobody believed that shit. No one really believed in the Rapture. But I can guarantee you, I believed in the Rapture. And so we'll start with Tim. Tim, were you a pre, mid, or post tribulationist?
Well, when I was religious, I was really young. So it was one of those, I didn't really have a position. I found out later my church actually were not rapture believers. But I grew up in the I was in elementary school in the mid to late 70s. And Thief in the Night was a big deal back then. So pause your podcast, hit that on YouTube if you really want to see some horrible acting and just weird stuff. But I remember being taken.
Kevin Sorbo bad?
Oh, trust me. Kevin Sorbo is high quality acting compared to what you'll get in Thief in the Night. I promise you that. 70s level special effects going on. It's so horrible. I remember seeing that when I was a kid and being actually really freaked out about it. And of course, the funny thing was my church didn't really believe in that at all. But yeah, it was a big deal back then. Everyone was a little worried about it. But again, that was, Reagan was coming up, Carter was in, different time.
Yeah. And see, whereas I never had the Thief in the Night, we were just pre-tribulation. We were just pre-tribulationists. I mean, we talked about the Antichrist a little bit, I think about 2 months ago, because I used to believe in the Antichrist, and we used to look for the signs of the Antichrist.
You mean Obama, right? That's that.
Nah, this is well before Obama. Back then, it was Clinton. It was Clinton was the Antichrist. So
Bill or Hillary?
it was Jesus. It was Bill Clinton. It was the Antichrist back then.
You were in the Left Behind books, weren't you?
Oh yeah, I read the first two. I've seen the movies.
Well, my brothers told me about how great those books were back then, and I was like, really? Wow.
Yeah, and so the it's kind of funny because I never did any research on the rapture. It was never something we just accepted it. We just said, "Oh, this is part of our belief." I mean, and we spent literally my church. I don't know if it was every year, if it was every other year, they would get into Revelations, and it was a night service. So we went to church twice a day on Sundays. We went to pre-church with Sunday school, and then we went to night church because my dad was a deacon. But the rapture was always a thing during the summer. We would always talk about it because we get into the tribulation. And I remember, I wish I could find these graphs. I wish I had these because they literally had little graphs and they broke them all down. And I know nobody on this audio can hear it.
Are we talking like bloody infographics or what are we talking here?
No bloody infographics, Hannah. We're talking about literally they would show timelines. And so on the timeline, you would be about partway through and it would show, okay, well, this is when the rapture is going to happen. But according to the mid-beliefs, this is where it's going to happen. And then they would throw Bible verses all up on there. And all of a sudden you see all these Bible verses and it would literally go through and it would like do hermeneutics against itself to try and figure out itself on whether it's going to be pre, mid, or post. Because the reason we were pre was because, again, I'll have to look up the Bible verse. I probably should have done that before we recorded this segment. But, there was a Bible verse that went out of its way to specifically say this. And what it would do is it would say, by the way, this is the reason, and you're going to get raptured up if you have faith. That's why you always had to remain determinate. You always had to remain faithful to Christ, because in the end, if you didn't, you wouldn't get raptured. And then you would have to come in the post-rapture when Jesus came back after the 1,000-year rule of Satan.
Man,
yeah, I remember those graphs, the big charts with the timeline of history, and it's broken down into the various ages.
And so this is a timeline of past, present, and future.
Yes, but it only goes back 6,000 years because about 8,000, because like 2,000 years from, Adam to Noah. And then there's another 2,000 years between Noah and I believe it was Babylon. So when the Jews were in exile. And then there's another 2,000 years, even though it's really not. It's only there's like the 500 to Jesus, and then you do some weird math. And in 1988 or 1994 or 2001 is when the rapture is going to happen. They were like these big, complicated formulas with proof text and cool drawings and, sauced with ignorance that, really were effective in scaring people.
And bilking them out of all their money. I remember those stories.
Yeah, and so we had it where we had it, and what they would do is they do an altar call after every one of these. So it's funny because on our night church during the school year, no altar calls. But during the summer and the Revelation, fucking altar calls every fucking Sunday. It wasn't even a question. It's like, yeah, altar call, and then you'd be like, no one's going up there. Maybe I should go up there again. And but Baptists don't believe that you could be saved twice. I don't know what to do.
The altar calls just come up here and shout and holler that you submit, or what?
Well, and how much of that, though, had to do with the fact it was summer. The students were probably misbehaving and less focused than they normally would be. And they probably have some background guilt going on. It's best to try and get them out of that summer rut where they're owning their girlfriend in the back of the car, or at least really thinking about it, and keeping them in check, because it's more needed then because there's less structure for them. I actually think there's a pretty good system for that they try to do.
Yeah, and they probably did. I guess I never thought about it. I was young, so I guess you don't really think about that type of thing. You just get told that you fucking do this, and then you sat there guilty. But yeah, Hannah, what the altar call was what they would do is they would give the speech, and at the very, very far end of the discussion is when they would get up and they would be like, you really need Jesus, though, to avoid this. And if you have Jesus, you won't have to worry about, worry about if the rapture happens pre, mid, or post, because you'll already be saved. And so you'll already be assured that you're going to get to go to heaven. And so they would do things like this. So like our pastor, he would raise his hand and he'd be like, "All right, children, all right, now I want to make sure that you all understand." And then he would put those long dramatic pauses in there because it would just be like that. Yeah, see, exactly like that, because he wanted to draw you in. Because then it's like you have to listen. It must be a listening tactic or something that I don't fucking know.
Rhetorical trick.
There you go. See, and again, that's something you never know, And who the fuck teaches these pastors these goddamn things? You would think that they wouldn't think about that, but somebody's teaching them these tricks. Somebody is.
I'm pretty sure it's called a theology degree. Yeah.
so in seminary, do they? And I don't know anybody that's been through seminary that's shared these things.
I know a lot of them, actually. I have a lot of pastor friends, believe it or not, that are actually the ones I know are actually all really cool pastor friends, extremely liberal. But they do a little bit of it, but some of it you just pick up. I mean, it's public speaking skills. Donald Trump does it. Hillary Clinton does it. Anyone that's a big time public speaker. What's his name? Any of the sports coaches that do motivational talks, or Tony Robbins, they do the same thing too.
I'm gonna say Tony Robbins with his teeth. They just shine.
Good televangelist if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And televangelists, they're snakes, but we never actually had a lot of that. We never even had a lot of revivals, honestly, in our church. It was never a revival church.
So what was your church, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
So they were Baptists. They consider them Baptists, but we were a weird form of like Southern Baptist mixed with like just a white conservative Baptist, because it was a white church. I mean, very heavily white church.
So is this in the Michigan area, or was it? Or I don't know your background well enough to know. So I grew up in Ohio. I moved to Michigan when I was about 16. So I was born in Springfield, Ohio, and then I moved to Toledo when I was 3. Okay.
It was Toledo, Ohio. It was a very heavily Baptist area.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so, I went to like a non-denominational, private school, and it was kind of funny because it wasn't associated with our church.
Mm-hmm.
In real reality, the lessons matched up pretty close for the most part. Like you'd hear something at church, and then like 2 weeks later you'd hear it at school, and you're like, oh shit, I already learned this. I wonder who's talking to who.
course, how many of your teachers went to the same church as you went to?
My principal did. My principal did. That was bad. I have some bad stories. I do have some stories from that, especially because when you get in trouble and then you got to go to church that night, and you're all paranoid because you know what the fuck that principal knows what you did, and you're waiting to see if he contacted your parents or not. Because there was one. I was in 5th grade, and we used to have to sit. And I guess we're going off on a tangent here, but I was in 5th grade. And we had these doors, the doors, and all the kids would line up for the buses in the drop-off area by these doors. And we weren't in a big school. I mean, we had 2 classes for our 5th grade, and so 30 kids each, roughly. So 60 kids total. And so, again, not a very big school. Well, these girls were holding the door closed, and so I couldn't get out. So, I'm trying to get out, and I'm getting angry. So I back up, and I run, and I kick it open. Well, they're all on little hinges, so it stops in front of her face. But the girl goes, you could have broke my nose. And I was like, fuck you, don't fucking hold the door. And, I'm like, not even thinking. Principal standing right there. Just like, Chris, you know you can't say that. It's like, run to the car, get out, get to the car, go. Yeah, I got my ass handed to me for that one for my parents that night.
Yeah, I spent time in the Christian school system in the Zealand, Holland area myself. So K through 12, good times.
Ugh. Yeah. So anyway, we'll go back to the Rapture and
Rapture.
Yeah. So with some of the research and the stuff that I looked at is the Rapture seems to be something that picked up speed right in the late 1500s, and it seemed to be like a Catholic type thing. And I could be wrong, but that's where it kind of seemed the Catholic Church is the one that kind of brought out a lot of what the Rapture is and kind of started to sensationalize it, if you want to call it. And, so when we go through the Rapture and we understand the psychology behind it, and again, I'm not a psychologist, but it almost seems like it's a big fear base. But a lot of the Rapture seemed to feed into what happened also when I was growing up. And Tim, you're a little older, so maybe you didn't have it as a child, but you probably saw it happen to your friends or kids and stuff like that. The Satanic Panic. And that fed right into the Rapture. That whole thing just fed right into the whole Rapture. And so I don't know, Hannah, did you ever have the Satanic Panic that ever come up with your parents?
No, we were not really paying attention to anything along those lines. I guess like maybe some heavy metal, hard rock stuff, but nothing was ever told me. It's like evil, murder, Ozzy Osbourne, Kiss, none of that stuff that people used to hold up as like the devil's music.
Was always one of the things they went to too. Is if you play the record backwards, you can hear.
It's like the movie Little Nicky when there's like, it's like what are they trying? What's Ozzy trying to say when they play it backwards? Like, you think that's bad, bro? You should listen to Chicago in reverse. Like, you should play Hold On to Satan. No, whatever.
But for us, the Satanic Panic, for me, it was the Marilyn Manson. So in 94, that's when Antichrist Superstar came out. And now I'm trying to think of how old I was in 94. I had to have been 11 years old when it came out. And I just remember, latching onto, because that's when I first started to get into music, and my parents didn't like any of that heavy metal, A. And then it definitely they did not like the Marilyn Manson. And I remember our Christian radio station was broadcasting live from the Marilyn Manson event in Ohio, and they had a live broadcast, and they're like, anybody who's wearing a shirt that is a Hawaiian shirt, they can't get into this. Nobody can get in with a Hawaiian shirt. You must be wearing all black. You cannot get in without wearing all black. And you're like, what are you talking about? And they're like, no, and you have to have black nails, and you have to have black eyeliner. You can't get in without this stuff. And then you switch over to the secular station, because I had my stereo right by my bed and I got my headphones on. And so I switched to the secular station, and they're like, yeah, they're giving away free tickets, and you can see all the boobies. Holy crap, there's a lot of boobies. And you're just sitting here going, oh, well, one sounds more appealing than the other. And then of course, in church the next day they had to talk about it. So that was a Saturday night. So then in church the next day they had to have a conversation about how Marilyn Manson was going to tie into the Rapture. Literally, that he was going to be part of the Antichrist. And you know why?
Plus, right in the album title. Come on.
Yeah.
No creativity.
When you said the Satanic Panic, there was one that happened in like the late 70s, early 80s, like black rock, black metal, and stuff. And then, yes, I do remember the Marilyn Manson period that you're talking about, when we had a bunch of basically the first shootings over in Columbine for
post Columbine, especially, is when that really took off.
Yeah, and that like I know that, but nobody. I was already listening to heavy metal and wearing black and creepy shirts at that point. So like I know the point, but it was never really a big deal in my school or even in my family.
Funny thing, it wasn't at my school. Wasn't a big one. I know, like, I mean, the Satanic Panic. Actually, if you can actually wiki it, it's a thing that was like, in the 80s, basically into mid 90s. And it encompassed a lot of different things. So it encompassed, like, the originals were like Mike Warnke, who was an evangelical Christian comedian in the 70s and into the 80s, who his big thing was, I'm a Christian comedian, but also I used to be a satanic high priest. And that was all part of his shtick. And, of course, he got exposed as being completely not true. But it also had backmasking for albums, Dungeons and Dragons, heavy metal music. Those were all things for it. And then also the repressed memory problems that were going on back then about, basically people making things up. And
repressed memories like Scientology?
No, repressed memories as in, I have memories that my father touched me when I was 3, but I didn't remember till I was 30 because I've now been under hypnosis.
Oh,
and they actually prosecuted people, and they've gone to prison for it. Most of them have now been exonerated because it turns out, of course, the psychologists were feeding information to the people. It's a real tragedy. You got to look up the repressed memory thing that was going. That was a big part of the Satanic Panic also of that time period.
That sounds terrible. That's one of the reasons why, like, the Secular Therapist Project, I think it's called, such a great idea compared to, going to what you would assume to be a doctor to help you with your psychology issues, and they just feed you to the nearest church. They're not helping by any means.
And a lot of the people that were doing it, actually, for the repressed memory thing, from what I had researched, it's been a long time since I've gone through it, many of them were actually secular therapists even. But it gets into the whole satanic ritual abuse, which also became a thing that fed back into that, where people thought there was like a secret underground cabal of Satanists in the world that control everything.
That's true, because it's funny. I gone back. I never got to watch the X-Files growing up.
So, you missed out.
I did, and so it's funny because my wife laughs at me because she did not have any of that, at all. She had none of that, and her she grew up very, very progressive, I guess, for the time period. And so we're rewatching them, and they had a satanic episode, and at the very end, you're kind of like, well, they're kind of actually saying they think this is true, and then like 2 episodes later, there's another one, and you're like, what the fuck? Who the fuck how the hell did they make any money doing this? Who the hell bought into this shit? But they obviously people did.
Yeah, and the X-Files episodes, I remember those 2. Those were a lot of fun. They were good episodes. But, yeah, a lot of people believed in complete and utter nonsense back then, which always puts me on key nowadays to go, is somebody really believing complete and utter nonsense right now? Because at the time, it didn't seem terribly unreasonable. I mean, I thought it was a little bit, but it's like, okay, well, maybe it's a little plausible. They're doing a segment on 60 Minutes about it.
Oh. Yeah, the South Park and stuff, or not South Park, the X-Files, that was always a big thing for me I didn't think it was as good as a lot of people thought it was. They thought it was this amazing, amazing show, and then it was re-released on Netflix, so you could go through it again, and all I can think of is, like, the really weird conspiracy theories out there, that this show is like a propagation of not, like, making the assumption that there has to be something. There's always somebody pushing and creeping under. And so, like, I kind of like, oh, man, I don't know if it's such a good idea for kids to be watching this. To like, there's a guy that's running the show, the G-Man, the Smoky Man.
Well, the funny thing is, I was active in the skeptical community when that was originally being aired. And there was a real love-hate relationship in, like, Psychop and some of the other secular organizations of going, okay, we really like the show because for its time period, in its context, it was a good show. But they're like, oh, but it also, it makes people want to think they want to believe in that. But the counter argument always was, actually, it's kind of exposing people to how hokey it really is. So it was one of those. There was very much within the skeptical community. Even it was a controversial show, but it wasn't horrible. You know, it wasn't like Mysteries of the Unknown, which everyone hated.
That's how I've always felt about the Rapture. Whenever I heard about it, I was like, I just don't. It just
makes
seems
no
like
sense.
a goofy story, I guess.
Yeah.
You didn't think people rising from the dead and going to heaven, or people dropping out of their bodies and having their souls rise to heaven is logical, Hannah?
No, I never did. Never did. Pretty happy with it too. I don't have to fight off any weird ghosts or something.
You might. All right, so I think we've done enough crazy shit that we used to believe. Let's move into something probably, I don't know, maybe a little bit less fun, but a little bit more informational. You know, yeah. Hannah's topics.
Time to learn, man.
Hannah, I get to make fun of Hannah because his topics are always serious and they don't give me any chance to rant. Like, we're gonna talk about interest rates and banking poverty, and then I just sit there and think, oh well, it's interesting, but what am I gonna rant about?
Hello, I'm Miss B. Haven,
I'm Demanda Wright,
and we're
promoting secular feminism. And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hey everybody, this is X.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Felicia. We're the Utah Outcasts.
3 out, unashamed, and active atheists living in Utah.
And we are personally inviting you to let us love your ears each and every week.
As we take the news, current events, and pop culture and give it a little twist.
A love twist, with consent.
And we'll be joined each week by a special guest to tell us what makes them an outcast like us.
Come find us.
The Utah Outcasts.
On podhell.com, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play,
Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
And on UtahOutcast.com.
We finally bought that domain off the kids handing out mixtapes in the mall.
Come be an outcast with us.
Take care of yourselves out there.
Bonne nuit.
And you're welcome.
Hey, this is Keith.
And this is Jen, and we're from Not Another Atheist Podcast.
You're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Join the revolution.
Now, back to the show.
Hannah, why don't you introduce to us a little bit about interest rates and banking poverty, sir?
Yeah, it's the whole idea is that we don't teach finance in this country. We just don't teach it to children. We don't teach it to up-and-coming kids. We don't teach it to high schoolers, college kids. We just throw credit cards at them and hope they survive. We really don't have a financial education system.
Wait. I'm going to back you up just 1 second there. I don't mean to cut you off, but we hope they survive. No, we hope they become indebted.
Well, that too.
Have to keep paying. I mean, it's part of the system.
Yeah. So that's the whole goal of basically this segment was like, okay, this is a system, and it's just a little bit of understanding from the young up. I mean, just a basic understanding of how important hourly wages, interest rates, and loans. I have an image that we'll probably just post up on the Facebook or something as a supplement to the show. But what made me start thinking about this entire segment, I got my bill from Menards, the local hardware store, one of them in the area, and I'm redoing my kitchen. I got a bill for $4,290. That's a cheap kitchen. I'm not done yet, but my minimum payment is $43. But they give you a nice little table, and it says for 3 years at $171 for the minimum payment, it would take me, or $171, it would take me 3 years to pay that off. But the total amount I would pay on a $4,290 loan would be $6,161. It's an extra $2,000. But if you make the bare minimum payment, it would take you 18 years and you would pay over $12,000. So you're almost tripling the amount of money you pay. So when you get cars, you get, houses, loans, student loans, like you make the minimum payments, you're doubling, you're tripling the amount of money you pay in. And a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people get into credit cards and they're blown apart as far as their credit score. And so I was thinking, where do we start teaching this? So were either of you taught finance education where your parents just, hey, listen, you got to make some money and save it? so you can get that thing?
My parents did to a certain degree. They did a decent job with it. Believe it or not, my school actually did a little bit of it too. But they were conservative, Calvinists, so they do that kind of thing. And I'm doing it for my daughter. It's one of those, nope. Yeah, I'll loan you money to buy your iPhone, I told my daughter, but, there's interest, and here's how it works, and you're going to end up paying me all this extra money at the end of it, so do you really need it?
What'd she say?
Well, she definitely thought she needed it, but she really didn't want to pay the money, so she was highly conflicted. So, but she ended up saving up a bunch of money for it. Not quite all of it, but real close to all of it instead. So, it worked out okay.
Yeah, see, I grew up where the finances we were taught is if you don't have the money, you don't buy it. That was it. My dad has only had car loans for my mom. And that's it, literally. My dad's driven like crap cars, and it's funny. My dad had a car that had a floor that was falling out in it, and until my mom said you can't take the kids in that car, that's when he got rid of it. My dad grew
a Flintstone car,
kind of. Yeah, it turned into one. Yeah, and it was kind of funny because when we grew up, and we weren't. My privilege is showing here, I guess, a little bit. So we were not poor. We were not having to eat or worry about walking from one to the other or worrying about one paycheck to the other. My dad's always made a decent living. But the big thing is that my dad was ultra conservative financially. He always saved money all the time. I mean, my dad's had a 401k since we've been tiny, tiny little kids. And that's just the way my dad's operated. And so, I was taught you don't spend money unless you have money, which that did not work out in my favor very well. But I tried till I was about 19, and then I kind of fell off the bandwagon. But
we got your credit card.
I don't have a credit card. Actually, I'll be honest, I don't have a credit card. I've only owned one credit card, and that was a Kohl's credit card, and the highest credit limit I had was $300. And then the only other credit card I had is I got a medical credit card for my wife's for some of her dental work that was not like within the ballpark of even $1,000. And it's funny because I actually paid that off last night. Ironically enough, now that we're talking about finances, Hannah, I know exactly what you're talking about because I got these bills and I would always pay 4 times whatever the minimum was. That's always what I did. And so I paid it off rather quickly. Well, all of a sudden I got a bill in the mail saying, hey, you owe another $25. I'm like, what the fuck? How do I have a late payment for $25?
Early payment fee.
No. It wasn't an early. It was because they split my loan, and the first letters they sent me only had the one that had interest on it. I had an interest fee part of that loan that they didn't tell me about. That's due next Monday, or a week from next Monday, or that was another $300 that had no interest, and basically they said, hey, by the way, here's your $25 late fee, and guess what? You owe that money or we're going to give you interest for the last 12 months on that $300. And you're like, well, fuck, how much? Oh, that's another $175. Fuck that. It was like outrageously high. So I just paid the damn thing off. But
well, that's what I do. That's my basic method of I only have a couple credit cards and I don't really carry a limit at all on, or I carry a balance on them. Whatever I accrue for a month, I pay off that month. Basically a credit building exercise so that my credit looks good whenever I need mortgage or if I got to buy a car. But I bought my last car with cash. I saved until I had cash to cover it. Those are the things that I wanted to try to talk a little bit about for what we could do to teach kids. And I have a couple of resources here, but before I want to get into that, you mentioned the conspiracy theorist thing. Like there are people that say that the system is designed to keep people there, so they want you to be in debt. And in a way, the economic system, the way it has evolved over time from being just pure blue collar, being enough to make all your bills, to both parties or both parents in a family household needing to work to cover the bills. And then the credit world started, the Reaganomics started, and we started seeing credit as a major thing that every family carried regularly. And now it's turned into the student loan stuff. Well, the conspiracy theorists and education experts, they can agree on some things, and this is one of them, that they believe that the system is kind of set up to keep people in debt because there's so much machinery based on that interest rate. And an understanding of that will help you break free of it. Like I will be, if I don't move, I would be completely debt-free at 40 years old. Like that's a goal to have in life. And like, I don't think a lot of people know about that. I don't think they even know that's possible. You can buy a house and be debt free.
Well, you're rich, Hannah. That's part of the problem. I mean, you make twice what everybody else makes, so
I
it
make
just
less
makes
than
it
you.
easier. You do not make less than
Yes,
You're
I
so
do.
full of shit. You are full of shit.
Well, I will tell you exactly what I make after the show or something and see if it's true or not. But I literally know I'm under $50,000 a year. But anyways, so this.
By the way, just so you know, I'm 46, and I will admit I am not debt free. But
I was like, I'm 33, and I'm not debt free at all. I still owe my student loans. So,
well, like I said, when I'm 40,
I own my house, and I actually have my first car payment since I was 22 years old. I just got this year.
Oh,
whoa!
So I drove really crappy cars for a really long time, and I paid more than half of my car off, and I'll drive it for 12 years, and I will pay for 4 for it. So,
yeah. Well, Tim remembers I was at Tim's house last year. My damn car died. So I mean, I drive crappy
really?
cars. Yeah. Ironically enough, I was at Tim's house in a blizzard.
You're right. I forgot about that. You are right. Oh, that was terrible.
That one,
so
and it was
you just get the
cold.
whiskey out and just say, "Screw it, we're not going anywhere."
Well, Tim offered. We could have done that. I could probably.
I'm Mikasa Sukasa. I mean, I'm also doing single income and stuff for my house. So I went through a divorce a few years ago. So that really rocks your finances, let me tell you.
Oh, I know.
Piece of advice: don't get divorced. It's ugly.
Yeah,
financially.
I bet. So let's go back to the thing, Hannah. So if you want to educate kids, right? If you wanted to educate kids who probably won't listen to our podcast, because how many kids want to listen to this? You need to soundbite this down to, I don't know, what, 30 seconds to 2 minutes, I think is the average attention span of a teen nowadays.
Well, this would be more for like their parents or for people that have young kids and they want to start teaching them. I linked a link. It's Rich Habits, and this guy's kind of a douchebag as far as it's very libertarian. It's very like, if you want to be rich and you just have to think about being rich. But
it sounds like Donald Trump.
Some of the things that he says on here, like take the frivolous stuff away, limiting television, requiring children to read educational books or just books in general, requiring they save 25% of any gifts they get. To set goals for planning, things like that structure, that organization and understanding of how money works and things. Those are great things. There's a great list, and just some of the other ones on here. You guys both have access to this doc. Was any of this stuff on here something that you have been doing, did, or experienced when you were younger? Because my parents hit most of it.
Well, for me, the no cell phone use in this house is high. So, like, Tim's daughter, I mean, I guess she bought her cell phone, but my kids don't have cell phones right now. I mean, they're going to be 14 years old.
Oh.
But my kids don't have cell phones. We have a house phone, but we don't actually own a phone to plug into. We're too poor to find a damn phone. But in all seriousness, the kids don't have cell phones. Now, my one son has an iPod, and my other son has like an iPod Touch. And they've used those, and we do limit it. I mean, during the summer we're a little more lenient, but during the school year it's 1 hour. There's 1 hour of interaction, and if you basically the way we see it is if you have extra school curriculars, like for instance, my one son wouldn't get home till 6 to 7 at night. Then it's homework time. Eat homework. Oh, 8:30 is your bedtime. So you don't get your hour if you don't get your homework done. So if you could pound your homework out in under a half hour and eat and get ready for bed, hey, more power to you. You can have that. We found he couldn't do that. He couldn't hold to that ever.
Face down on the iPad.
He has before. It's actually funny. I've caught, if I let him work in his room, you'll find him with his face in the math book, and he hates math. And if he was here right now, if he was up, he would stand here and be like, "I fucking hate math," and he would tell you that. But that was our rule during the school year, and then on the weekends you don't touch the TV or video games. I don't care what's going on until your homework is done. The one exception we made is because he plays baritone. He did not have to play his baritone on Saturday fucking morning at 8 a.m. before he watched TV, because there was no way in hell I was going to get up at 8 a.m. on a Saturday just because he wanted to play his fucking baritone, Not going to happen.
Oh, my daughter can play any instrument she wants. Dad can sleep right through that.
That's very true. You have that ability.
Yeah, with that, she has to wake me up if the fire alarms are going off because I might just cook with the house too. So there's a little bit of a detriment to not being able to hear.
Yeah. And the limiting the calories, I mean, I don't know. I'll be honest, we don't count calories here, but we don't have a lot of junk food. I mean, you've been to my house. The most junky food we have here 90% of the time is alcohol or pizza, and that's it.
I was going to say, it's the whiskey calories, man.
Yeah. I mean, in reality, that's it. I don't enjoy sweets. The wife does, and she has her stash, but outside of that, we don't, I don't know. We buy a box of cookies once a month, maybe. You know, I have ice cream that's, I don't know, fucking 3 months old in the freezer.
Get that caterpillar ice growing on the outside.
Yeah. She won't. My wife won't eat it. She's like, fuck you, buy clean ice cream. I was like, no, eat the fucking ice cream in there first. God damn it. Like, I don't want to pay any more money.
My daughter does have a cell phone, just got it for her, and she saved up most of the money to get that. And she does chores in order to pay for the monthly bill, which I do bill her for it, her share of the bill. So I got to admit, but she had an iPod before that. She saved up $700 all on her own by doing things to buy her own iPad Air, like 2 years before she got the cell phone.
Oh.
So, and she like knitted scarves, sold them to people, and did all kinds of things to raise that money. And it's like, yeah, right, as long as you're doing that. Here's one thing I heard about, and I heard this probably 4 years ago on NPR. And I think it's a really good idea. And I'm thinking about doing it with my daughter when she gets a little bit older. And that is giving the household budget to her. And saying, okay, here's what's going in with direct deposit, into the checkbook every week, or for my case, every other week, and you are going to be responsible for writing checks and paying all the bills, groceries, entertainment, everything is going to be coming out of that, and you need to manage the household.
What are you going to do about your beer, Big Tim? She's going to say, I don't drink that. Fuck you, Dad.
Well, that'll be an additional offline budget expense or something. But no, as an exercise, I heard they talked about it. There was an NPR episode I heard like 4 years ago where they did this, and I actually think that's an intriguing idea because that way they get the whole mortgage, interest, like, okay, yeah, don't leave lights on because it's going to make the electric bill higher. All those things they don't think about. Because I come home and I'm like, why are all the freaking lights on in the house?
Every night.
Yeah, I come home during the day, and I have lots of windows in this house.
Yeah, my wife likes to leave the lights on as well. I used to do it when I was a kid. I really like the idea of doing like budget checks and things along those lines when you're younger because college hit me like a ton of bricks and making payments, and I missed a few. I didn't set up, I pay a bill the day I get it now. I just pay it. I put it in the mail. I get it out. I have automatic with the banks most of the time. Like Lake Michigan Credit Union is the union that I'm part of. And, as long as you have their checking and all that, they'll send the checks out for you. You just have to keep track of it and set it all up. So I just pay immediately. Like it's an awesome thing to really get used to doing when you're younger. In this list, the biggest thing that I think is the most beneficial for this, it caught me by surprise. It just says that reassure children that mistakes are good, not bad. Children will need to understand the very foundation of success in life is built on learning from our mistakes. And basically, it's okay to fail and do something along those lines. And that kind of basic understanding will help you kind of build up and understand finance and take a chance. And if you make a mistake as far as finance are concerned, it's not the end of the world, blah, blah, blah. All those types of things, like learning to learn. And I think that works really good for finance as well. So that's kind of the whole thing. I would love to see what anybody else thinks, anybody who's listened to this. If you want to say something on our Facebooks, like what we had, all of us had an idea of what's a good idea to do for children. If you have an idea or something to work really good, maybe we can post it and share it and get the idea out there.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I kind of took not on purpose, but I did take a page out of Tim's book. Tim doesn't run his central air in Michigan, and I thought that was crazy for years. No offense, Tim. I thought you were insanely crazy for not running your air.
I run it. I just don't run it very often. I try to restrict myself to about 7 to 8 days of air a year.
Okay, and to me, I grew up, and maybe I'm spoiled, right? I grew up in Central Air since I was 3 years old. That's just, my mom had Central Air, and she insisted it when my parents got married, they get Central Air. So when my parents rented their first house in Ohio, in Toledo, it had Central Air in it. And then the house we bought, my dad put Central Air in. We moved to Michigan, put Central Air in. Chris moves out of the house, and what does Chris do? Get Central Air. Get Central Air in the first house he buys. Loses the first house he buys, goes to rent a house, gets more Central fucking Air. So now we're living in Zealand, and we got a really good deal on the house, and it's a family house, something we want to keep in the family. And guess what we don't have? Air ducts. So we can't have Central Air. I don't get a choice this year. There is no Central Air in this house. And it's funny because right now it's 78 degrees in here. And I just turned, and I'm not sweating. Like normally I'd be like, holy fuck, this is so warm in here. But we have air units in the windows, but it's not like Central Air. And we don't run them very often. I bought a...
just when you absolutely need it.
Yeah. And so today, I don't know if they ran it when I wasn't here, but when I come home, the first thing I do is I go shut them off. And the kids are like, what are you doing? It's so hot in here. It's like, shut the fuck up, open a damn window and put a fan on. And I was like, you don't pay the bills? And they're like, well, Dad, you always like Central Air. I was like, well, I don't like it now because it costs me money. And they're like, it cost you money before. I was like, I don't care. Like, we own a house now. We're going to about pay that bill. But our bill, because we don't have it, it's amazing how cheap my electric bill is. Even with 2 TVs running, plus iPads and 2 cell phones in the fucking house, and my Mac that run constantly.
Yeah, do you mind divulging what your electric bill is? Because I'm curious. I never know how to benchmark that, and if you don't want to talk about it, that's absolutely cool.
$56.
I'm at 45.
Wow, you guys are both way more awesome. And well, I don't know. My house, I don't run Central Air, but my electric bill, I struggle to get it below 60 a month.
Yeah. I think it's some of it's because of Zealand. And I'll tell you what, I mean, when I lived in Jenison, it was $150 a month during the summer.
Holy moly.
With my Central Air, it was $150 a month.
Oh, yeah, with Central Air, easily. If I run Central Air, like in August, if I run it for quite a bit, then I'm pushing $100. But even dead of winter, when I'm not running... any air or anything like that, I'm looking at a $60 electric bill still, no matter what I do.
You still got to run the squirrel cage on your heating system. I mean,
well, I got my Mac. I got my one. I only have one TV. I haven't replaced all my light bulbs yet with LEDs, but I'm working on it as they go out. So there's a little.
For us, our heat is because we don't have forced air. That saved us a lot of money too, though. Ours is water heat. Seriously.
Yeah, that's
geothermal.
What's that?
Geothermal is what you're running?
Yeah, we have thermal. I don't know what thermal is.
It's just basic convection. They run the hot water tank that runs through the whole house.
You have a boiler system.
Yeah, we have a boiler system.
Oh, okay.
So during the winter, even I can set my heat. Like, so we moved in February, beginning of February, and it was still cold. And we set the heat, I think I set it at 65, and the wife would turn it up at night to 68 to 70. But even with that, even during the winter, our water bill was, I don't think I paid over $50 a month in water. And that's with running the water heat. And so during the winter, at first it was like $72 for both. I was like, oh, I could afford this. I went from $300 to $72. I like this. I will sweat and lose the weight. How about that? That's my goal. Is I'll just sit here and be an ornery fat fuck in the heat and just sweat all this fat out. But it's funny because Steelcase, where I work at, they have, I don't know if I could say that on the air, where I work at has, they have air there, right? And it's weird because we hired a new girl that she works next to us, and she's definitely about half the size as me, so she definitely doesn't like the 68 degrees. I don't like 68 degrees anymore either. I think it's cold. Like, so there at work, it's like, yeah, if it gets muggy or in there, I don't like it. But as soon as the air kicks on, I was like, man, I got to put a fucking sweatshirt on. Like, I have a sweatshirt now. In the middle of July or June, I'm wearing a sweatshirt at work sometimes because it's like, man, who the hell turned the air down? Like, turn it back up. Like, and then all the other people in the office, they're like, well, you're crazy, Chris. What the hell is wrong with you? It's like, I don't know. I guess your body must adapt,
There's a lot to that. Bodies definitely adapt to what they're used to for it. I remember we went, and this was even like October, we were in China to adopt my daughter. And it was hot where we were. I mean, it was in the mid 80s to it hit 90 during the day, and you'd see everybody out there was wearing long sleeve shirts and t-shirts and even a jacket on top of it, and it's like 85 degrees and muggy out. And they aren't breaking a sweat, nothing at all. It's like, you people, how can you possibly do this?
I know they have things like that in India. It was 110, 115 degrees. They had 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people die last summer. It was so hot. There's a limit to what the body can take, but even then...
I'm not saying it's unlimited. I'm just saying there's a range that you can perform within.
But I know people, even when it's not that insanely hot, it's got to be so hot that you have to be able to adapt to it. I don't understand how you couldn't.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of evolution there, Hannah. And
Yes,
how about this? That sounds like a science segment to me. That sounds like something you need to take a note, and maybe next week we need to come back and actually have that conversation, because I'd be interested to know that. I'd be interested to know how fast your body can adapt and stuff like that, because it almost feels like to me. Now, I'll be honest. Last year, I didn't run the air as high at the old house either, because I didn't like paying the bill. I didn't like paying the bill, but I didn't run it as low as I used to. But this year, we have the air units in the windows, and I've ran them a handful of times, and we've been blessed that it's God's basically allowed it to not be too warm this year so far, but. I don't know. So yeah, once we hit about 80
this weekend.
Not this. Well, as long as it doesn't get over 80, I think I'm okay.
We'll see 90s.
No, in the house. I don't care what it's outside. As long as my house doesn't hit over 80, I think I'll be okay. Once it hits about that 80, I think I got to get the fans. But and I guess we need to get out of this segment here in a second here. And now that we diverged from,
Dude, we are such a homeowner podcast now. We were doing gardening last week.
We did gardening last week.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah,
not on purpose. It's just
we're getting old, I guess. It's like an old.
No, trust me, it'll only get worse, gentlemen.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
But we actually have a community pool in Zeeland right down the road that you can pay $70 for 6 months for your whole family, and it's kind of like, and they have a heated one too for the winter. So I think if I save that much money so far, I can afford to get the family membership to the stupid. I mean, you can walk there, so I'll lose weight while I'm walking there. I can drink more because I'll be losing more weight. I like this ideology right here.
Well, you have to promise me that you'll do the fake "I'm drowning" so that you get to kiss the pretty lifeguard.
I can't do that, Hannah. Hannah, I can't do that.
Sandlot was a life-changing experience.
Tim, well, I don't know if Tim's single still or not, but Tim is probably the closest to the single people in this podcast room here. That
well, I'm single but smart, so
you don't want the pretty lifeguard.
I am very comfortable in my current situation. So,
all right, so there you go. See.
This is Ishmael Brown, the HNIC from the Angry Black Rant podcast, and you're listening to the Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hi, my name's Callie.
And I'm Ari.
If you're like most of us, you're very concerned about the gay agenda's plans for world domination.
Are you tired of seeing glitter all over every damn thing?
Do you hate rainbows as much as any other red-blooded American?
Then we have the answer for all your baseless fears and unjustified paranoia.
Presented exclusively on Secular Media Network, the Gaytheist Manifesto is your source for news, commentary, discussion, and debate at the intersection of the atheist movement and the LGBT rights movement.
You can find us on Spreaker, iTunes, and at gaytheistmanifesto.secularmediagroup.com.
If you're not ready to get in line for your mandatory gay marriage and you're terrified of short-haired women in pantsuits, come have a listen and get up to date on their plans. You'll be glad you did.
This is Trav Hamone, host of the By Any Means podcast, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution. We have cookies.
Now, back to the show.
All right, so let's move on to the topic that will bring ranty, the topic that everybody has been talking about, and I don't want to bring the show down, and I did a little segment last week that if you haven't checked out yet, make sure you head over to our Spreaker page, It's basically like my, I don't know, audio blog, I guess if you want to call it that. It's called From the Vault. And I did a little discussion on Orlando, and I didn't get ranty, I didn't get preachy, I didn't say this is what we should do to change it. I expressed solidarity because this shooting to me, it affects home probably a little bit more than maybe other shootings. And it's funny because I had somebody call me out on Facebook, and if he listens to this, which I doubt he will because he's probably not going to listen to this, but if he is listening, he'll know who he is. The big thing that he called me out for is he says, 10,000 children die a day in Africa. And if we added all those up and all these numbers, we'd have millions of children dying of starvation. And yet you want to stand on your high horse and talk about Orlando shooting. Shame on you. And what I did is I said, I don't think you understand the difference between the situations. I don't think you understand what the difference between a home turf shooting and a starvation. Do you understand that if we wanted to go over, we would have to take over countries to fix the starvation problem? Do you understand that we'd have to get into people's worldviews and either dictate their fucking worldviews, or we'd have to change their worldviews? They're not going to let us walk in and just go, here's food for 10,000 people. Here you go, guys. They're not going to do that. That's never happened in history. Nobody's walked in and said, here you go, have all this, and we don't expect anything back. And can America even fucking do that? Can America actually get off of its ass and just go, hey, we're going to hand you millions of dollars to feed all your starving kids, and oh, hey, guess what? Here's all the information that you need to build and refurbish these things so that you could sustain yourself. Do you honestly think anybody in America is going to be not capitalistic, for fuck's sake? We're not a socialist nation. If we were a fucking socialist nation, maybe we'd be a little bit farther ahead, but we're not right now. We're not a socialist fucking nation. Does anybody honestly think that can happen? And I said, but even if we could do that, that doesn't marginalize the 50 lives that were taken. That doesn't marginalize the people that lost their life, the families that have to fucking wake up every morning and know they can't see that fucking loved one. That doesn't marginalize any of the outgoing effects of what has to happen to change this. That doesn't change anything. All that means is this individual doesn't have the ability to fucking goddamn communicate or to put two and two together to understand that if this is a situation, if this is something that is important to us, if this is something that we want to change, that we do need to stand up, we do need to fucking speak out, we do need to actually do something. We need to not just sit here with our hands up our assholes and just go, oh, it didn't happen to me. Oh, there's 10,000 people dying, so let's just ignore it. No, fuck you. Why don't we get up and stand up and side with the allies? Why don't we get up and say this is intolerable? And why don't we look to create legislation change that will affect life so that we don't have this happen again?
Well, if anybody ever basically accused me of saying, oh, well, those 10,000 kids that die every day, I talk about those kids a lot. I talk about social programming. I talk about, instead of spending $700 billion a year on a federal defense fund to blow up shit, how about we take a whole bunch of that and do a bunch of good things? I mean, they talk about ending world hunger could take as low as under $200 billion. I mean, there's a lot of really great things that I would love to see us do with our massive funds, being the richest country in the world, as I keep getting told. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I talk about all the time. And this shooting just happens, and that brings back the gun control debate. But as a humanist, as someone who's constantly talking about these type of political endeavors, it's not like, oh yeah, I ignore the starving kids, I ignore the Zika virus, I ignore the Chinese people in slave wages making are putting together our cell phones because the chips are made in Japan, but it costs too much money. In Germany, they pay living wages, so they have everything assembled in China. All of these things we talk about on a regular basis, and when something is a major part of the news cycle, like a shooting is, it brings back the gun control thing. But it's not like we don't talk about gun control ever. This isn't just this thing that, oh, well, we're not going to talk about it now until the next shooting. If you bring it up, we talk about it. We talk about this kind of stuff regularly, and we hope that legislation gets passed regularly, and it never really seems to happen because it requires the big, gigantic news media cycle for it to get into our consciousness again. So I don't think that this guy's got a good perspective as far as us just cognitively biasing and just, or double think we can only do one thing at a time. You know what? I can care about those 10,000 kids in Africa, and I can care about people that are dying in the United States, and that's not too difficult for me.
Well, I also think it's a false equivalency. I mean, the 10,000 kids dying in Africa is a completely different issue than the fact somebody gets shot up, or 50 people, or 49 as it may be, get shot up in the United States. That's a whole different issue than people starving in Africa or people dying of poverty in Africa. Is a different issue, and it's a horrible issue that happens, that anyone starves from it. But that's a false equivalency. That is not a valid argument at all to say, well, because there are other people that have it much worse, therefore we should not consider problems that we may have at home, is ridiculous at best.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and that's and I don't want to spend too long ranting about that because it pissed me off. And then it's like, well, look, I got your attention, didn't I? I was like, yeah, fuck you, asshole. Yeah, you got my attention. I had to delete you. You went on 4 of my posts and posted identical things. Fuck you. And then, of course, it just seems like all the right-wing conservatives came out on and half of them are atheists that are on my damn Facebook page. And half of these people are like, just that horrific libertarian mindset that no matter what, we should be able to have as many guns, as many things as we want. We should be able to do what we want with our guns. And I just say, aren't we going to ever stop and actually look at it? Can't we actually look at this at least a little skeptically?
We need to do something. I mean, gun death in the United States is a huge issue outside of even the Orlando incident, as they may want to call it. We have a problem. We have a problem that is unique to our society, and we need to try to find a way. And you know what? We're going to flounder with it. We're probably going to make bad decisions and try to do what we can. But we have to try something, because currently, for the last 10, 15, 20 years, we've been trying nothing. Thoughts and prayers is bullshit, and it's not going to help with this.
Definitely. The one thing that I always wanted to say on this is, what do we need? We need more information to try to figure out the solution, right? Like, okay, well...
Oh, no. The CDC cannot study gun death.
I was just going to say.
They've legislated that.
Barred from studying gun violence and gun deaths. Why is that? What could possibly be the reason that's a good idea?
NRA money.
I know. It's like the stem cells could be potentially bad, therefore you're not even allowed to think about stem cells.
Yeah, those dead babies they kill, right?
I guess it's the same thing, but the NRA argument for not being able to even study gun deaths, that's even further into crazy, because there's no empathic thing that I could come up with that. Like, I have no empathic response to, if you study the gun deaths, maybe it'll hurt someone's feelings. There's no way. I can't. I don't know what the argument is, but I have no understanding of it. It just drives me crazy that we are not allowed to study that.
Yeah, and so the one article I found, and I'll admit that obviously we all have biases. We do. I didn't grow up with guns. I have that bias. Hannah, on the other hand, did grow up with guns. So, you are going to get a more well-rounded, even though both of us are very socialistic, and he's a little bit more Trumpish than me, but you're going to get...
I'm going to get you a Merkin for Father's Day.
What? What the fuck's Merkin?
A Merkin. I'll let you look that up.
I'm not going to look that up. No, thank you. I don't even want to know. But anyway, there's an article we found that somebody brought to my attention, somebody that is very pro guns. They brought this article from Vox Explainers called America's Gun Problem Explained. Now, whenever I see that headline, I sit there and go, okay, hold on a second. Is it really explained? Do we really, really know that this is true or not? But they go through and they systematically break down some of the different problems. And they don't specifically adhere to, well, this is the only reason, and we're all mourning an emotional response, which is where I feel. I feel emotional right now. I do feel emotional. I mean, I've worked within the LGBT community, and I've tried to be the best ally I can, outspoken ally as much as I can, and I've volunteered at many different Pride festivals, and I'll be honest, it's very hard to, I'm very scared to go to the Pride festival this weekend, and I'm not even LGBT, I'm just an ally. But I just this whole let's kill people thing over the fact that we don't believe the same way or we don't like what they do is just mind-boggling. But this article makes a couple of really good points, and they say America's gun problem is very unique. And they go on to talk about how no other developed country in the world has anywhere near the same rate of gun violence as America. The U.S. has nearly 6 times the gun homicide rate as Canada, more than 7 times Sweden, and guess what? More than 16 times Germany. Germany, of all things.
Well, yeah, they're pretty calm now. They're not as crazy as they used to be.
but according to UN data compiled, they talk about how the higher overall homicide rate is given to us. And so they say homicides by firearm per 1 million people. We're at 29.7. Guess who's the lowest country? Anybody know?
I can see the screen, so I think it's probably legal if I guess.
Wait, I'm sorry, the lowest what?
The lowest gun deaths per 1 million capita.
Per capita. Okay, lowest gun deaths per capita would probably be, I don't know, Denmark.
They have Australia.
Okay. Well, yeah, okay. All right.
Denmark's not far off, though. Denmark's at 2.7, whereas Australia comes in as 1.4.
Surprises me. I figured there would be some gun deaths out in the outback. It sounds like a crazy, dangerous place as soon as you leave the main cities.
Do gun deaths include suicides? Their stats.
This says homicides.
Okay.
These are just homicides.
All right. Well, that's actually an important distinction, and I agree with you about all of this, but that is a distinction.
Yep, and I do think they actually get into the suicide thing here in a minute. And so it goes on to talk about how the U.S. has by far the highest number of privately owned guns in the world. Estimated in 2007, and yeah, it's fucking, 5, 6 years old, or, 7 years old? Whatever the fuck number it is now. God damn it, 9 years old. The number of civilian, I'm sure it's gone up by then, the number of civilian-owned firearms in the U.S. was 88.8 guns per 100 people, meaning that almost one privately owned gun per American, and more than one per adult. But here's where it fails, right? Here's where the distinction fails. Not every American owns a gun. So that means there's even more multiple. The second highest ranking country is Yemen, which is a 54.8 guns per 100 people. Think about that. We're looking at a semi-Islamic state, right? They are definitely a more religion-controlled state than we are. Has less guns than America.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
we have a shit ton of guns in this country. I mean, I don't have one. Chris, I'm hearing you don't have one.
I don't have one. No.
And you may or may not, or you don't, as you said.
My father has 3 or 4.
Right. Okay. So he just took care of us.
Yeah.
And I grew up with guns to a certain degree, nothing major, and we weren't a big gun family or anything like that. And I have made a conscious decision that I don't like that stuff. I'm not going to have it in my house. And I don't think that makes me more a potential victim of crime in the area or anything like that. It's just I looked at the harm reduction, and I'm not necessarily like pro-gun. I'm sorry. I am pro-gun control. And by gun control, I don't mean ban anything. I mean register it, track it 100% of the time, always. If a gun transfers ownership between me and Chris, it's registered with the federal government, period.
Mm-hmm.
Like cars.
I agree.
I cannot sell a car to Chris without it going through the State Department so they know where the fucking car is and who owns it. With guns, I can go, hey, Chris, I got a gun. Give me $2, you can have it. And other than him giving me the $2, nothing says that the gun is his. I think there should be unique serial numbers, and if they aren't on it, all kinds of consequences can happen. Yes, you are not going to eliminate gun culture. You're not going to eliminate the problems that happen with it, but you should at least do everything you can to try and minimize harm.
Yep. And that's a very humanist principle that I think our nation and our society miss. I think we aggressively miss this point. And I don't want to tangent off into religion again, But some of me feels that with the religious side of things, both Islamic and Christian, perpetuates some of this. You know, it's that fear-based desire to continue to live. And it's funny, you would think more atheists would own guns than Christians, right? Because if you're a Christian, you get killed, you fucking go to heaven. You're a Muslim, you get killed, you fucking go to heaven, I think. I guess I don't know enough about the Muslim religion to know that.
Valhalla.
There you go. Yeah, you're a Viking, you get killed by a gun, you go to fucking Valhalla, right? You know, as an atheist, we don't believe in shit, right? We go in the fucking ground. Like, I have more reason to want a gun to defend myself than somebody that thinks that they're going to live for fucking ever. I do, really, but I don't own a gun. Part of it's because of a personal thing, kind of like you, Tim. I don't enjoy guns. I don't see the appeal. I guess I don't enjoy the money spending, you know? I mean, I don't get the enjoyment out of the cost value of it. And I don't want to ever have to put myself in a situation where the neighborhood and the economy I live in are that bad. I want to fight to make the economies that other people live in, that they feel they need guns to protect themselves in, better. That's what we should be doing, right? Why wouldn't we want to do that? If you have to walk around with 2 guns because you're worried somebody's going to steal your shit, why don't we fix the reason they're stealing it? They're not stealing it because they're assholes and horrible people all the time. And sure, there are assholes and horrible people, but most of the time, if we look at Maslow's pyramid, right, and we actually look at the scale of things, what is the number one thing people want? Survival. And if you can't make a living because you got to work 2 fucking jobs to make money, to feed your family, and then you don't get to do anything fun after that, of course, you're probably going to be more prone to committing a crime. So as we go on, as we move forward, because Hannah doesn't seem to have any more comment on that. As we move forward, they say, the second point says, more guns mean more gun deaths. And they have a little scale that shows where the United States is in guns per people and gun-related deaths. And guess where the United States is?
Way up there.
Yep. But an interesting point, and I think Tim did a little research on this, and that's part of the reason I want to have this conversation, is because Tim had a good point about Switzerland, and Tim's going to help debunk some of that Switzerland thing. Switzerland actually ranks up there, not as high as the United States, but Switzerland's on the top portion of people that own guns and gun death.
And low gun death.
Yeah, low.
Low. I mean, they're considered. I've always heard libertarians tell me that, you know, Switzerland, look to them because the way they're doing guns, they have a high gun culture. You know, a lot of people have guns. It's actually mandatory in some ways, but they have almost no gun deaths. Look to Switzerland because, you know, that's like the ideal libertarian society. I'm sorry to slam on libertarians. I hope you don't have too many viewers that have really drank that Kool-Aid, but
we did a segment on it, Tim. If you go back and listen to it, you'll understand if we really do or not.
All right, man, research. Okay, I'll do that. But
the Swiss, they have this thing that they do with most young males that it's like this militia training that they get. It's just like I don't know if it's post high school or whatever, but it's a compulsory type thing where they teach you weapons and self protection and just kind of like educating the populace and the people to protect the rest of the country. And then that's where they get this gun culture and gun respect and gun awareness. Because I was reading some stats. My coworker and my father, they are, you know, real big pro-gun. And I was reading the stats, like the crime rates and murder rates in the U.S. have gone down slowly, but they've gone down. But the number of gun accidental deaths and accidental shootings and this kind of stuff has been seeing a very stringent or big, strong rise. And those kinds of things are, you know, this double-edged sword to gun culture and people going out panicking and buying weapons whenever they think something's dangerous. Well, Switzerland got around that. They made it a safe gun culture, and I think that's a big reason why we don't have a lot of this impulsive gun use in that country. I would like to see more of that in the U.S. if we're going to continue to having such a high gun ownership per capita rate.
I agree completely. I mean, that was the thing when I looked into actually Swiss, and I just did it recently. Swiss gun culture laws is everything is regulated. You can have a gun. Absolutely fine. Everybody can have a gun. Well, not everyone. As long as you follow the rules, you can have a gun in Switzerland. And that's completely cool. You know, it's like if your dad wants to get a gun, any kind of gun he wants, as long as he meets the various requirements, to get that gun and can prove it, and anytime they want, they can audit his stash, he can have the gun. And by the way, they also include ammunition in that same regulation. So it's like, okay, you can have a gun. Show me your permit. Show me that you're good. Show me all these various things. And it's like, okay, here's your gun. Ammunition. Oh, cool. Show me your stuff again. And we can inspect you at any time in order to look at this ammunition and gun, or any component within the gun, or any type of thing that you might buy that could make ammunition. We're completely cool. There's this huge regulatory body, the kind of thing that libertarians wince at.
Yeah.
But that's part of how they do it. It's like, okay, you're allowed to open carry a gun as long as you are going to a military exercise, which is really fucking different than people saying, no, I can just fucking open carry my gun anywhere I want, like Walmart, for example.
It's cherry picking. It's like, that's the part of the legislation I like. I'm going to ignore all the rules and regulations that I don't like, and I'm just going to do the thing I do like.
Right. And I think the Swits actually have a decent point of going, you know what? You want all the fucking guns you want, and admittedly, they do not allow fully automatic weapons. They have lots of restrictions, but it's like, as long as you want basic guns, even semi-automatics that can have a good clip on them or anything like that, you may have it. But you are subject to background checks every 2 years. You are subject to any ammunition you buy being inspected by the government. Would we be cool with that? The NRA would have a stroke if they tried to do that in the United States.
I would love it. As a regular gun owner, as a person who likes to shoot somewhat recreationally, we have 400 acres. My family is part of 6 other families that own land for hunting. And so
the rich people there.
We it's in Harrison, dude. It's like a giant tree patch. Well, anyways,
I have shot for fun, and I enjoyed it when I did it. Not enough that I'd ever want to buy my own, but I have enjoyed shooting.
Yeah, and so like I'm not a huge part of the gun culture. I'm never be interested in concealed carry permits. Really, I don't have a handgun, just 2 rifles, one little tiny 22, and the other is my hunting rifle. That's it. That's all I have, and I shoot probably twice a year. When I go up one time before hunting, and if I shoot in hunting. That's it. And I enjoy it. I enjoy the culture, whatever. But if someone said I had to get checked out every 2 years, awesome. If someone said I had to have all my ammunition counted, awesome. Someone had to say, you have to have your gun registered with a special ID that can only be attributed to you until you sell it. Just like when I sell my car. So
Don't tread on me. Don't tread on me, Hannah.
I know. I'm just saying. I mean, we're in the system. The government's watching us. Every time you get in your car, they know what you're driving, man.
Yeah, and see, I think that's the big thing. I mean, they want the freedom to own guns. They want the freedom to have whatever the fuck they want. But yet, at some point, nobody wants to take responsibility for it.
Cake and eating it.
Yeah.
I want to have it and eat it.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of an Eddie Izzard bit where, he goes, I'd like cake and tea or death. And eventually they run out of cake and he's got tea and death and he doesn't get a fucking choice. And he says, I guess I'll take death then. And then that's the end of the skit. And that's what we're at here. And that's my whole point. Like, yeah, 10,000 kids a day die from starvation. And I abhor that. I would love to change it, but I don't want to go into another country and create a war to change that.
You know the best way to change that, by the way?
What's that?
I'm going to offend both of you probably with this. The best way to prevent that? Let's have kids.
Yeah.
Neuter everyone?
Oh, you're getting Dan Brown Inferno territory here.
A freely available birth control for everyone, whether their partner wants it or not.
Yeah, I'm 100% in total agreement with that. That it should be.
I know. It's just one of those things that's fairly verboten to talk about in general. It's like, allow women to say, "Yeah, I'm taking the pill in secret. Fuck you."
Yeah. They can't do that? I thought they could do that.
Yes, they can.
Well,
they can't.
Okay, you're right. Okay.
Some places the husband has to okay the prescription or something.
In Bangladesh, how often does that happen?
I'm sure never, but
yeah, okay.
No.
Okay, I won't say never because never is an absolute.
Well, we talk about like having complete and total control of your body. Like if you can say something, if you can own anything, personal property, if you can truly own anything, it's your body. Decision for suicide, for drugs, for those kinds of things. Like that is
bodily autonomy.
If you have that
for alcohol,
yeah, that should be the one thing that you genuinely do have. So when it comes to birth control or whatever, I mean, those are options that I would 100% support. And I try to remind people that overpopulation is going to be, if not already is, one of the biggest problems of humanity, besides the planet eating itself and climate control. But like, we are already seeing problems with that, with resource shortages and stuff. I mean, a big portion of what's going on in Syria is water resource problems and stuff. So, I mean, more power to population control.
Hey guys, this is Wyatt Mathers from the Atheist Avengers podcast. You are listening to the Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution.
Hi, this is Trav Mamone of the By Any Means podcast. Join me every week as I talk to activists, bloggers, and podcasters about the intersections between social justice and humanism. Go to www.byanymeans.com, that's by spelled B-I, to listen to the podcast and read my blog. Besides, aren't we all a little bi-curious?
This is Deborah McTaggart from Beyond the Trailer Park, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Now, back to the show.
So you're fine. So another number or another fact in here. I guess I won't call it a fact because you guys can or everyone can do their own research. But another point the article makes is America tends to support measures to restrict guns, but they never translate into laws. And so Pew Research surveys, most people are in the U.S. support background checks, bans on assault-style weapons, bans on high-capacity ammunition clips, bans on online sale of ammunition, and a federal database to track all gun sales.
So you're saying that our representatives don't really represent us very well?
Yeah. Now, no offense, Bernie is pro-gun there, Hannah. So let's not get too far down that rabbit trail.
Well,
we'll lose
because,
in my opinion, I think actually just the mere tracking of guns and ammunition will get us a long way down the path.
Oh yeah,
that is probably this. It's way more important than banning AR-15s. It's way more important than most of the things people latch on to. The fact that you have a system to track every single gun and every single bullet is 200% more important than any other thing you can do in our country for guns. Sorry, rant.
Oh yeah, no. When you were on the Hangout, sometimes it blocks it in audio. I basically just said that that the type of the weapon itself is important somewhat, but like as long as people know who has what, how many rounds you have, and if you've been checked before you can use it. I mean, if you're a responsible person, concealed permit, I'm fine with that. Hiding guns all over your person, those are dangerous too, but whatever, as long as we know who, what, how, and where, and when, I think just that information would be better than slipping things here and there at gun shows.
Yeah. And then one of the big things, and they do talk about the NRA, Tim. I mean, they do talk about it in this article about the NRA and the early history of gun restrictions and the lobby and the amount of money that they pour into politics. And they talk about that. And I don't know how much I want to get into that, to be honest with you. I don't agree with lobbying at all, personally. I am very anti that. I'm very anti-big banks. I'm very anti all of that stuff. Unfortunately, we're at a situation I don't think we get a choice right now. But if we look at that and we look at, well, if the NRA lost some of its lobbying power, we wouldn't have some of this capitalistic desire to push more guns. I mean, what's the whole point of the NRA, right? to have more fucking guns. And so if it can sell more guns, if more people are using them, they look better, and therefore they can remain around longer. It's a simple facts of evolution to a point, you know? I mean, everything boils down to fucking evolution, it seems like nowadays.
There was a comedian, I shared it earlier today. There was a guy that was speaking, I believe, to like a group of congressmen, senators, or whatever, and he said if the NRA has donated more than $4 million or something, I guess it was this year, this most recent election cycle, whatever it was, and, you know, we've got all these gun support laws, we haven't made any changes, even though there's been tons of gun death. He says, well, what if we had $4 million donated for the people who don't want to get shot? Do you think you guys would support them just as much? Does money make that big of a difference? And like this, the question is the votes and the money and everything, the way the system, the structure is designed, and how, you know, our political system works nowadays. The lobbying is important, the money is important, but it just seems like that's, you know, profits are also a major part, like whether or not you're lobbying into another group and getting the congressmen to support you. And when they're done being congressmen or congresswomen, they go off and take a CEO job at some major corporation. There's so many different things that these guys are all in this special club. And I think the gun law, the gun regulation stuff is tied right in with it.
And Tim, to your point earlier, you had talked about the homicides versus the suicides, right? And the gun lobby doesn't care, in my opinion. They don't care about people dying. They only care about that capitalistic dollar. They only care about being able to fit into that program. But to your question earlier, homicides actually have decreased a little bit compared to suicides. Suicides have steadily gone up over the last 10 years. Along with firearm owners. They've both increased.
And all right, here's my take on that. It's going to be rough, just so you know. I get that. And I actually don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
All right, go ahead.
Good.
Explain.
All right.
Well, we're good skeptics. We'll entertain it for a second.
All right, no. You can crash on me, and I don't necessarily 100% believe it, but it's an interesting argument. Suicide. All right, I had a friend in high school that killed himself. He ate a shotgun in his mouth, and he died. And he was a friend of mine, and he wasn't my best friend. He was a friend. And I get it to a certain degree. And I actually don't hold him horribly culpable for it. I think there were much better things to do. I think he would have been a horribly successful adult. But I am not anti-suicide per se, but I'm not pro-gun on the other side of it.
Well, I mean, like we said a few moments ago about the bodily autonomy thing, like, it's unfortunate that people get to the point where suicide is a legitimate option. I mean, I wouldn't be like completely pro, like, oh, someone wants to commit, awesome, that's just your choice. I'd like to try to stop them from thinking about that, but I mean, I would put that kind of in the same area as, like, we don't really understand the brain enough yet, so I don't think there's any way to ever completely eliminate it. It's just more than likely, my guess is the suicide rate has gone up because there's just more guns around if you're committing suicide with weapons or whatever. Because it's like it's an easy access because it's right there. Like, it's an option. If there weren't guns around, that might not be as readily available as an option. So maybe that would be a reason why it's gone up. But as far as the psychology of suicide and that, no clue.
Okay, so this article actually talks about that. This article talks about two different things. The one, it can't correlate because Australia suicides had gone down even before the gun rate started to drop off. And so Australia did something called a buyback. And as they did a buyback, the suicide rates dropped even more than they had before. But as the Australian government started doing gun buybacks, Australian suicide rates went down. Israel officials started requiring soldiers to keep their guns at the base. Now, this isn't taking guns away, buying them back. They just required soldiers to keep them at the base.
Not your personal possession anymore.
A study shows that Israel soldiers committed 40% less suicides than they had before. Again, I'm not a psychologist, and we actually have I have a friend that's going to join the show in the next month and a half to talk about this aspect. It's not a topic I have a very easy time having a conversation about personally, but it's one of those things where, when looked at, it's that ease of something that allows for it to happen. And because, in my opinion, the way suicide works in people's brains and how the chemistry works and how we don't quite understand it, in my opinion, at this time, the safest function that we could provide is to reduce the amount of access to lethal weapons. Because in the end, if somebody does really want to do it, they're going to do it. But if you make it even more accessible, to me, it seems like instead of helping somebody, we're allowing for that harm to exist there for somebody to reach out and grab it. I kind of use the analogy of if you had knives, right? I have knives in my house. I'm a cook to a point. You know, Tim, you're a cook. You're a very good cook. I'm sure you don't have one knife you use. I bet you have a whole block or two of knives in your house that you use. And I wouldn't let my 2-year-old use those knives. I wouldn't leave them where my 2-year-old can grab them. I wouldn't leave them where somebody that I felt was at risk could touch them. And even if it's their ability to have the freedom of choice, should their choice be able to trump their brain's decision to trick them into something else? And I think we need to, as a society, get to the point where we find something that we could actually go, okay, well, at this point, we can let them do it. So, such as assisted suicide. But I think we have to be very careful treading that line, because I think there's a lot more to the mental state than any of us can say, and I don't think that we should just say, hey, free open reign, do what you want to do, and not look at the other aspects of it.
Okay, I'll interject in here. All right, first of all, my daughter's been using knives at my kitchen since she was probably 5 or 6, and it freaked the fuck out of me when she did. But, okay, we've been working through that. The other thing, and it's not really counterpoint at all, is that if I had had guns in my house when I was going through my divorce, I would have killed myself. It's just one of those things. You get that deep, dark place, which many people hit in many different parts in their life for many different reasons. And it's really, really easy when that is there as an easy answer. I would have done it. I looked at doing other things, but luckily I didn't have that.
And see, and Tim, that's my point. Is all it is I believe people should have the ability to make choices and do what they got to do. But I think at some point there's certain parts of our psychology we don't understand yet, and they take over. And that's to a point. That's actually my biggest argument. I'm not actually anti-gun. I'm not. I don't think people should just be restricted from all guns. To be honest with you, it would make my life less anxiety-ridden. I'm a high-anxiety individual. I would be a lot less anxiety-ridden if I knew I didn't have to walk in a park and know that there's 3 or 4 people with concealed and carries, and at any point they could feel like that and snap. And maybe that's a conspiracy theorist on my behalf. Maybe it's not. I'm more of a, let's create a militia. Let's do kind of what England did. Have a place to lock them up. You can use them recreationally. You can use them. And if the government ever did take over, boom, there's a militia down the street from you that you're involved with, that you're part of a community. You go down, get your guns, and go attack the government. That's where I stand as an individual. You know, if that's what people want to maintain their gun control. But I think that would create a lot less issues. I mean, how about this? Have you ever been so drunk that you don't know what you're doing? I know Hannah has. He does it every other week at my house to the point where he can't remember how he's going to walk out the damn door.
I've been that way. And the funny thing with me is it's just one of those, every now and again you get in that funk that everybody has been in to one extent or another. And when you're going through really hard times, it's just one of those, I'm better off dead than alive. And if you had a gun with easy access, and it's just one of those, I definitely could have seen myself doing it. I saw other ways of doing it, and it's just like, no, that's a fuck of a lot of work. I'm going to bed.
Well, there's also another direction to take this. It basically, you're thinking of, the gun being available and being used for self-termination. Well, let's say you're
mad.
And it goes the other direction. You don't want to turn that violence inward. You want to turn it outward.
Chris is an asshole, and I'm going to find that asshole, right?
Or not even directed just directly to one person, but you just get so seeing red rage that that one thing, that one instability, whatever it is, if you've got some kind of unseated rage towards a specific group of people, let's say you're a very strict religious person and homosexuals, you've got a unseated rage. Well, now you have an out, you have an option or something. That's basically the whole point, is that it can go both directions, and humans are very impulsive creatures. We're animals. We really are. I mean, and so I've been in points not because of depression or anything, like anger, where I almost did something really bad. That's something also that we can consider in the, okay, I am a concealed and carry, completely legal person, and someone does something to a kid, my kid, and it's like, there's no option. I'm going to destroy that human. Well, guess what? You're still going to be on the bad end of that. You're breaking the law. Like, the law has to make those decisions or whatever. But I don't think that all humans are rational, completely, sober thinking individuals when it comes to something, when it comes to pure energy and emotion like that. So that's another reason why, let's restrict them. Let's keep an eye on it. Let's, reduce. You don't have to get rid of it all, but I think there's no other way around it. Like, you can't just let it just completely open and run around in your society.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think that we need to do that either. And I don't want to leave the episode on such a depressing note.
We covered murdering and going crazy, so it got a little bit more perky.
Yeah,
after
that's good. But in all seriousness, we could talk gun control. We can. And we could talk non-gun control. And we could talk good guys with guns versus bad guys with guns. And we could talk about where they shoot the most in non-gun areas. And Justin Hale is sending me tons of links about this. Oh yeah, look how many more shootings happen in gun-free zones and yada, yada, yada. And I get that. But we have to examine absolutely everything. And so let's take that into account. Let's take into account, though, that maybe America doesn't need, 3 or 4 guns per person. Let's do that, because that seems logical to me. But let's remember the one most important thing, that our loved ones are being mowed down in the street. And they're being mowed down in the street all because you want your freedom. You want freedom. And normally I'd say, yeah, I agree with that. I should be able to say what I want on the radio. Hannah should be able to say what he wants on the radio, even if he's a Trump fan. But
spray paint Trump on your car when I leave.
You better not. But the biggest thing is that even if I tell Hannah he's a piece of shit and he's a Trump lover and all these other things, right? Those are just words. They're only harming to a slight extent. The minute Hannah grabs a gun and shoots me for me calling him a Trump lover, then he's creating a harm that's irreversible. And that's the biggest thing, is, in my opinion, we have to look at it and slate it based on those things. If somebody is able to murder somebody else on such an extreme state, then maybe we should understand that, hey, there should be a little bit more regulation, a lot more fucking background checks. And yeah, why not make them like automobiles? Can you kill things with an automobile? Yeah. If you hit something, do you think somebody's going to come get you? Or come after you? Yeah, they're probably going to come sue you for, money to fix their vehicle. If you hit somebody while you're driving, do you get, unintentional manslaughter or whatever? Yeah. So why wouldn't guns be the same way? Why wouldn't we regulate guns in the exact same way that we regulate vehicles? To me, it makes only sense. For fuck's sake, marijuana is illegal still. It's a Schedule 1 class drug. Maybe not much longer, but it still is. But yet you can carry a fucking AR-15 that killed 49 people. You can't smoke pot legally, and you could go to jail for a felony, but by fucking God, you can take that goddamn gun and go shoot somebody and take their fucking life. Now you tell me what makes more fucking sense, smoking a joint or shooting somebody with a gun?
Well, all I can say is I've heard the stories about how Omar bought the weapons right before basically his shooting spree, and he had been looked at by the FBI a couple times. Now he was sent through the background check system in the gun store that he went to, and he was still able to get the stuff. There's a communication problem there, because if anyone is even remotely investigated by the FBI for terrorism-linked flags, that should automatically be catchable in any kind of background check. That, to me, sounds... I've been trying to find somebody that can give me some information about the people, where the gun was bought, and if they could check and see if the actual background check was legit. Because on NPR, they were talking about it earlier today, and I've been trying to find some information about that, because that's the one link I haven't heard yet. I've heard he passed our background checks, he got the weapons legally, and obviously we know what he did, but are we sure that it actually went through the system? Because how does someone go through if they've been investigated by the FBI? Maybe not found, terrible, but they've never looked at me. So, you know what I mean? Like, if you've been looked at, I would think that would be a red flag, and, no terrorists buying weapons or something. So I think that's something that I've been waiting to hear. I hope it comes out soon, but other than that.
And I've been looked at by the FBI too, but only
you got
because
their own file?
No, it's only because I had a buddy that interviewed for them, so he had to get security clearance and had to have witnesses, so I had to do it. But outside of that, I've never been investigated by the FBI. So we want to wrap the show up. We don't want to spend too much time, So we want to thank Tim so much for joining us, providing a third opinion that counteracts Hannah's Trump opinion. And we just want to give him a chance to say his last words before we close the show out.
Thanks for having me on. I'll do it again sometime. You can reach me actually at skeptics1970.icloud or at icloud.com.
There we go. Cool. Thank you so much, Tim, for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure hanging out and talking with you and allowing you to take an intimate look behind the scenes of Cellar Door Skeptics. So thank everybody so much for sticking around for another amazing episode. And yes, I said amazing for a second time tonight. It's 2. So if you're playing the amazing
drinking game,
oh no, there is a drinking game.
Hold on. There we go.
There we go. Tim's got it. He's in on it. If you are playing the amazing drinking game, and you can tell us how many times that we've done it, we'll send a picture of us drinking right to your door. Because we don't have any other merch. We don't have any merch to give away.
Like that. We're gonna have to think of some kind of contest or something. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it would be fun. So there is, if you go back and listen to the episodes, you can count how many times Chris says amazing, and then every time he says that, you got to take a drink. That's the whole
point. That means
we
have to go back and count, though.
I know. Usually by the end of the episode, I'm too drunk to count because I don't remember how many times I said amazing. I think I've said amazing more in the last 2 minutes of this episode than I have for the last 5 episodes. So
the amazing per capita is like the American gun per capita.
There you go. You got it, Hannah. So thank you everyone so much for sticking around with us. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Cellar Door Skep. Follow us on Instagram. I don't know why, but go ahead and do it because we send shit out every once in a while. Follow us on Pinterest. Follow us on Spreaker. And if you really, really want to do us a favor, head over to iTunes, give us a rating. Even if it's 1 star, we prefer 5, but even if it's 1 star, head over to iTunes, give us a rating, tell us what you like, tell us what you hate, and make sure you stick around because next week we're going to have more, wait for it, amazing content coming at you. So we'll be back next week with another episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. Make sure you help us help you prepare for the revolution. Have a good night, everyone.
Rapture.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker, cellardoorskeptics.com.